Mars is a strange place, but these 5 Mars mysteries that need explaining simply take the cake and are all definitely worth looking into. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Strange creature spotted. A photograph that came out of NASA has sparked intense interest and debate, with many people convinced that the space agency is up to no good and quite possibly hiding something from the general public. This isn't the first time this kind of controversy's popped up, and it certainly won't be the last. The image shows a very strange shape, to be sure, and we're not surprised that people have decided that it looks like a Martian roaming the surface. The creature, which NASA says is just an interesting looking rock, has a fairly distinct shape. Whatever it is also seems to include arms, legs, and a thick mane of fur, kind of like that of a lion. While we're not about to discount the idea that Mars has its very own lions, we're not quite sold on this story. NASA's images aren't the most vivid depictions, and there have been countless occasions where people have claimed to see things that turned out to be rocks that have a strange shadow pattern. We think that's what this is, and don't think NASA really has anything to hide here. Their organization is large enough that proof of alien life would leak in no time at all, so we're happier waiting for their actual announcement. Furthermore, it's no secret that if people try hard enough to find a conspiracy, they'll end up seeing them everywhere. That being said, we like the idea that people are at least interested in these sorts of things and space exploration in general, because there's enough crazy stuff going on in the universe that we can stay happily entertained without seeing things that aren't there. Still, if we're wrong in our assumptions, this would be a huge deal. It would be interesting to see what happened if life on Mars was actually proven, and we do have to say that some of the evidence presented to suggest that life may exist there is fairly impressive. We plan on keeping on top of this, and will happily recant if another image of the same kind of creature shows up again in the future. That, in our minds, would help alleviate any doubt, and it's worth noting that if the stories are to be believed that Mars is populated with a huge array of people and animals, but only has one of each variety, maybe life there has adapted and evolved that way on such a strange and distant planet. We can never be sure until we're able to see for ourselves, which is something we don't expect to see in our lifetimes. Number 4. Creepy Mars inhabitant. Another image that has people similarly freaking out about life on Mars and is said to show a shy alien poking its head out of a cave in order to observe NASA's Curiosity rover doing its thing. We have to admit that it does look a little like a curious alien, although we do think it looks very shrimp-like in appearance. NASA has publicly stated, once again, that this image is only a rock, and that a look at the images before and after this particular still would clear up any confusion. We're not sure if people didn't bother to take them up on the offer to check out the other images, but can't quite get behind the theorists on this one either. Still, it would be fun to be proven wrong in this case. We really do like the idea that there could be life on Mars, although we don't think that it would take the form that we all expect. There's good evidence to suggest that microbes or some form of bacteria-like organisms could potentially have covered Mars's surface and still be eking out a living somewhere below the surface. But it's really hard to argue that actual creatures live there, especially with so many eyes on the planet now. Even amateur stargazers can get a solid look at the planet now, and with so many people pouring through NASA's data, we would have expected that if life was found to be there, then the public would be informed relatively quickly. You just can't keep a secret like that in this day and age, and NASA really doesn't have anything to hide. Revealing proof of life on Mars would undoubtedly lead to them receiving more money to study said life, so it's ridiculous to assume that they're engaging in conspiracy theories at this level. With so many false positives being pointed out, the real mystery is why so many people question the idea that NASA is anything but above board in these matters, especially when you consider the fact that there are so many interesting things going on around us that could use our attention, like trying not to wipe out life on our own planet. Then again, it could just be that the conspiracy theorists aren't able to contribute to the discussion at home in a positive or meaningful way, and we can't forget just how much some people want to watch the world burn in order to get a little time in the spotlight. We think life on our own planet deserves a little more attention, and that NASA should get a little more leeway, but that's just our opinion. Number 3. Massive domes on Mars. More structures are now being hailed as proof that Mars once housed massive, sprawling civilizations in its past, and that these civilizations could still be hiding out on Mars today. One image in particular supposedly shows a massive, dome-shaped building located on the side of a Martian hill, looking like something you would expect to see on Tatooine. This image was taken by the Opportunity rover, and the dome-like object is definitely strange in appearance. The people behind this story say that NASA is covering up inconclusive evidence of Martian-made structures and that they need to be held more accountable. Looking at the image, we can understand why someone might think the protrusion on the hill could be a building. That being said, we don't think it looks like a very structurally sound or well thought out building at all. It's misshapen, has a bunch of strange divots taken out of it, and is tilted at an angle on the hill. It could just be that Martian architects are going for a new age meets prehistoric look, but it could also be that we're just looking at, wait for it, another rock formation. If that is a building, it must be said that it does look a lot like a rock. We're sure that people will counter this opinion and say that that's exactly what the Martians want us to think, to which we say, likely story, bruh. While we're all about the idea that Martian buildings are possible, we also have to consider that they're not plausible and try to look for more realistic answers. And so we come to the conclusion that Mars has a lot of strange rocks. It's a little like looking up at the clouds and trying to spot familiar shapes. They can look uncannily like a giraffe, a steamboat, or a set of cowboy boots, but that doesn't necessarily mean giraffes are riding steamboats in the sky while wearing cowboy boots. At the end of the day, a little critical thinking goes a long way. And like we said, we think theorists' efforts would probably be better off directed toward more productive pastimes or endeavors like finding the lost city of Atlantis, which we think is more likely to be found than Martian megastructures. Number 2. Mystery holes. An enormous mystery hole has been spotted on Mars's surface, surrounded by a sheet of frozen carbon dioxide, itself pockmarked with similar, smaller holes. The main hole dwarfs the rest, measuring hundreds of feet across, and is located around the southern pole of the red planet. So far, they have two working theories. One is that the giant hole and the smaller one surrounding it is the site of an impact crater made by a meteor or an asteroid that has taken a huge divot out of the planet's crust. This would make sense, but doesn't explain a few bits and pieces, including the abundance of frozen CO2 surrounding the side. The second, more accepted theory is that the hole either covers or surrounds a huge collapsed pit caused by any number of planetary forces, including volcanic activity below the surface or rising temperatures melting huge ice and frozen CO2 deposits. The answer isn't clear at this point, although we're sure that we'll eventually hear about how it's a massive alien construction pit or missile silo capable of launching nukes at the Earth. We don't know how those theories are more interesting than the reality of the situation, as it's pretty interesting without any embellishments added. Number 1. Mysterious weather patterns. We think the most mysterious things about Mars are the ones that we can actually prove. Scientists have long known that Mars has some strange weather patterns, but they still haven't been able to figure out the way it all fits together for the most part. At the end of the day, we just don't know how the weather works on Mars, although that shouldn't really be a surprise considering the fact that we barely understand the weather happening right here on Earth. We do know a lot, but a lot of it goes way over our heads. Bad puns aside, a lot of people are dedicated to unlocking the mysteries surrounding Mars's unique weather patterns, particularly its violent dust storms. Progress has been slow, but they're optimistic they'll be able to figure out the basics soon enough. They were aided most recently by the appearance of two immense dust storms on the red planet. One of these covered an area that was larger than the entire United States and all of its overseas territories combined. The second one picked up 2 weeks after the first and was a little bit of a shocker to those studying the planet's atmospheric dynamics. While it's true that the storms are following patterns and paths that are considered to be normal, it's the frequency of the storms popping up one right after the other that has scientists intrigued. Prompted by this occurrence, they're now trying to determine the factors that increase the scale of these storms and make them so damn big. Each storm also seems to be made up of many more smaller storms that all add up to a gigantic beast of a storm. These smaller storms are all somewhat localized, but end up combining throughout their lifespans to become much more powerful and destructive. They've noticed that the majority of storms happen when the planet's closest to the sun, indicating that the temperature of the planet does in fact have a lot to do with the frequency and scale of these natural phenomena. They used this to theorize that Mars, back in the day, could have been much more stable, given the fact that it used to have a much more elliptical orbit around the sun. It also seems like dust from the planet's moons can even help seed these dust storms and add to their intensity, shedding dust of their own onto their parent planet, which is definitely something that we don't see at home. Our moon does affect our planet in plenty of ways, including influencing the tides, so getting to know a little bit of how things work on Mars could help us apply those same principles on Earth in order to help us improve the way we predict our own weather patterns. Alright, Top 5ers, if you haven't already, make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant, for even more interesting list videos that'll blow your mind. Oh, but I'm warning you, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There'll be a link in the description to the channel, so make sure to come and visit us. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Oh, and have you visited thefinestpost.com to enjoy the most amazing articles you will ever get to read? If not, click the icon shown on the screen right now. Anyway, see you soon.